The first mistake was thinking the old Elgin Mental Health Center in Illinois was just a backdrop for creepy photos. It was the summer of 2018, the air thick with humidity and the reckless confidence of being 19. My friend Mark had a beat-up Ford Focus and a DSLR. He used to take grainy, atmospheric pictures of abandoned places. I was just along for the ride, for the story I could tell later. The second mistake, the big one, was the Ouija board. It was Mark's idea, of course, a cheap cardboard thing from a toy store still in its plastic wrap. He said it would be a laugh, something to add to the vibe of the place. We went at dusk, the sky bleeding orange and purple behind the hulking Victorian-era buildings. The place was a sprawling complex of red brick and boarded-up windows, a silent monument to forgotten souls. We slipped through a gap in a chain-link fence, our footsteps crunching on broken glass and dead leaves. The air inside the grounds was still and cold, a pocket of winter in the July heat. We settled in what might have been an old staff quarters, a room with peeling mint green paint and a floor gritty with decades of dust. Mark set up a battery-powered lantern, casting long, dancing shadows that made the emptiness feel alive. He unfolded the board on the floor between us. The planchette felt light and cheap under my fingertips. Mark put his on it too, and our other friend Chloe reluctantly joined. For the first 10 minutes, nothing happened. We joked, we asked stupid questions for celebrities, we pushed the planchette in lazy circles. Then a breeze, impossibly cold, cut through the stifling room. The lantern flickered. The planchette twitched under my fingers. Not a push from Mark or Chloe, but a genuine sharp spasm. "Okay, not funny," Chloe whispered, her voice tight. "I'm not doing it," I said, and I meant it. My heart was starting a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. Mark, ever the instigator, asked, "Is there someone here with us?" The planchette dragged our hands to yes. A thrill of genuine fear, cold and sharp, went through me. This wasn't fun anymore. "What is your name?" Mark asked. It began to move, slow and deliberate. Liar. "Are you lying to us?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling. The planchette shot to yes, so fast it scraped the cardboard. Then it started spelling again, faster this time, a frantic scraping sound in the silent room. Leave. The lantern died, not a slow dimming, but a sudden, total blackout. The darkness was absolute, a physical weight on my eyes. From the corner of the room, a sound, a wet clicking noise, like a tongue detaching from a dry palate. Once, twice, then silence. We scrambled. I heard Chloe whimper, Mark curse as he fumbled for his phone. The stark white light from his screen lit up his terrified face. We didn't speak. We just ran, crashing through the dark hallways, our breath ragged, not stopping until we burst out into the twilight and piled into Mark's car. He peeled out, gravel spraying, and we didn't look back. I thought that was the end of it. A scary story. But it was just the beginning. That night, lying in my bed in my quiet suburban house in Schaumburg, I couldn't shake the cold. It was deep in my bones. I was just drifting off when I heard it. 3 distinct knocks on my bedroom door. Sharp, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. My blood turned to ice. My parents were heavy sleepers, and my brother was away at college. "Hello?" I whispered into the darkness. No answer. Just the hum of the central air conditioner kicking on. I told myself it was the house settling. I pulled the covers over my head, my entire body tense. I must have fallen asleep out of sheer exhaustion, because the next thing I knew I was awake but I couldn't move. A crushing weight was on my chest, pinning me to the mattress. The room was dark, but a darker shape stood beside my bed. A man-shaped void, a cutout of absolute blackness where the shadows of my room should have been. It had no features, no face, just a profound and hungry absence of light. I tried to scream, but my throat was sealed shut. I could only stare, my mind screaming in a silent, internal riot. The figure leaned over me, and I felt an intense, invasive cold, the same cold from the asylum. Then, as suddenly as it began, the pressure vanished. I could move. I gasped, sucking in air, and flicked on my bedside lamp. The room was empty, but the feeling of being watched clung to me for the rest of the night. The knocks became a nightly ritual. Always 3, always on my door. Sometimes they'd come from the window. My dog, a normally placid golden retriever, would refuse to come into my room. She'd stand at the threshold, whining, her tail tucked between her legs. I started sleeping with the lights on. I looked like hell. My parents asked if I was sick. I couldn't tell them. I was 19, too old for monster under the bed stories, but too terrified to deny what was happening. A week after the asylum, I was taking a shower. The mirror was fogged up, the bathroom steamy. I wiped a clear circle to brush my teeth and froze. Scratched into the condensation on the parts I hadn't touched were 2 words: liar, leave. The letters were crude, jagged. My breath hitched. I wiped the mirror clean with a trembling hand, my reflection staring back at me, pale and wide-eyed. The worst was the whispering. It started low, just at the edge of hearing. I'd be on my laptop trying to distract myself, and I'd hear it from the hallway. A sibilant, rasping murmur. I could never make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, malevolent and mocking. It was the same wet, clicking sound from the asylum, punctuating the whispers. One afternoon, home alone, I heard it right behind me, clear as day. A voice that was not a voice, a thought that was not my own, slithering into my ear. "You invited me in," I snapped. I threw the Ouija board, which I'd kept hidden under my bed in a weird mix of guilt and fear, into the outside garbage bin. I Googled everything I could, smudging with sage, salt lines. I felt stupid, desperate. I poured a line of table salt across my bedroom doorway and windowsill. That night, the knocks were angry, frantic, a rapid, pounding fist instead of a polite tap. The whispering was louder, a furious hiss from the other side of the salt line. But nothing crossed it. The sleep paralysis returned with a vengeance. The shadow figure was a constant visitor now, a silent sentinel of dread at the foot of my bed. The cold it brought was a deep space cold, a void that sucked the warmth and life out of the room. One night, during one of these episodes, I felt a sharp, stinging pain on my arm. When I could move again, I looked. 3 long red scratches, beaded with tiny drops of blood, ran from my shoulder to my elbow. They weren't deep, but they were real. They itched for days. I was breaking. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I jumped at every sound. The entity, the thing we had stirred up, was no longer just a presence. It was an active infestation, and it was focused entirely on me. It fed on my fear, and I had plenty to give. The climax came on a night when my parents were out at a concert. The house was too quiet, too big. I was in the living room, trying to watch TV, but the whispers were overlapping, coming from the kitchen, the hallway, right behind the couch. The lights in the hallway flickered. A cabinet in the kitchen slammed open. I sat frozen on the couch, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This was it. It was getting stronger. It was in the house with me, no longer confined to my room. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the last shred of my sanity snapping, or maybe it was a primal, survival-driven anger. I stood up, my legs shaking, and I screamed into the oppressive silence of the house. "Get out!" The second the words left my mouth, the TV cut to static, blaring white noise into the room. The floor lamp in the corner swayed and crashed to the ground, the bulb shattering. And from the dark hallway, I saw it, the shadow figure. It was clearer than ever before, a dense, man-shaped blackness that absorbed the light around it. It didn't walk, it glided towards me. The cold hit me like a physical wave, stealing my breath. The wet clicking sound was right in front of me, deafening. I thought it was over. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end, for the cold to consume me completely. But it didn't. There was a sound from the kitchen, the distinct mechanical grind of the garbage disposal turning on by itself. It ran for a few seconds, gnashing at nothing, and then shut off. And just like that, the pressure lifted. The cold receded. The static from the TV faded back into the sitcom I had been watching. I opened my eyes. The hallway was empty. The oppressive, watched feeling was gone. Truly gone. For the first time in weeks. I stayed on the couch, trembling, until my parents came home. I never told them what happened. The scratches on my arm faded. The knocks never returned. The whispers stayed silent. The shadow never visited my dreams again. The garbage disposal had chewed up the last remnants of the Ouija board in the trash, and with it somehow the thing that had clung to me. It was over. I had gotten my life back, but a part of me never left that room. Never stopped hearing that wet, clicking whisper in the dark. I know, with a certainty that keeps me up some nights, that we opened a door in that asylum. And I know, with a fear that is now a permanent part of me, that doors can be opened from both sides.